Just look at this, man. It's insanity that this is the first chapter of a new manga. It's insanity that this is a weekly manga series. And it's also insanity that this is in Weekly Shonen Jump. I am just absolutely in shock with just how godly this artwork looks. And this isn't like the only panel. There is multiple shots throughout like this entire first chapter where the art quality is just speaks for itself. It is crazy detailed, and I'm just like, dude, Yuki has really been cooking for these last few years ever since his previous work, Red Hood, was axed. And yes, you heard me right. The last series that this author did, from what I'm aware of, Yuki, that is the author of this, they did Red Hood. And that series holds a very special and sore place in my heart because it was something that had so much vast potential. There was just so much uniqueness about Red Hood, and the West loved Red Hood. However, Japan, that, actively reads Shonen Jump in Japan, did not like it, and the series got axed, sadly. And the thing is that it's been a while since Yuki sat down and gave us a new manga series, and finally they're back in Weekly Shonen Jump with Otr of The Flame, and my goodness, they really spent these last few years since, Red Hood came out to really perfect their art style, their craft, and create a story that honestly I think will be very unique for the magazine, but engaging enough to catch those that really like shonen, and those that don't typically like shonen as well. It has a very nice middle ground. I can see this series really causing a lot of people that might like Vinland Saga, for instance, to go out of their way to actually read it, but I also could see those that like fairy tales or mythology also reading this, and those that like typical battle shonen as well also enjoying this too. It has a nice blend of different elements that really just catches everybody that actually just likes good manga. At least that's what I get from the first chapter. Now, let's get right into this, okay? Let's get right into what Otr of the Flame is, and if this is something that legitimately will interest you. If the artwork hasn't already won you over, which I've already showcased in this video already, I'm just going to say the story definitely has some unique stuff going on. One thing in particular that really stood out to me with this first chapter, and it might not be a big thing or a big deal for a lot of people, but as a fan of Norse mythology, or just Vikings in general, or mythology in general, I really like the incorporation of like, Vikings and Norse within this story. Obviously, Norse mythology is used a lot in writing, and it's definitely been used a lot in anime and manga. It's not necessarily anything brand new or groundbreaking, but it does typically go on with, like, how do you utilize it? It's like isekai, how do you utilize the format of reincarnated or transported to another world? Obviously, you can be very generic, or you can do something incredibly unique and make something that really just stands the test of time. ReZero, Mushoku Tensei, Overlord, etc. Very good examples of this. But what I'm trying to say is that the story so far is utilizing things that you don't typically see often in Norse-like stories, or Viking stories. And what I mean by this is the actual spirit-like character that we're introduced to at the end of the chapter, the first chapter. Her name is, I'm probably gonna butcher this, please forgive me on that, but Phlegia, or whatever how you pronounce it, but basically, I know the term of this. And the reason how I know the term of this is because this is actually a Norse guardian spirit, which I love. I absolutely love that little detail, because those that love, like, Norse mythology, or Vikings and stuff, you're gonna instantly recognize this name and be like, yo, that's a unique name. I wonder what the meaning behind that is. And you know what? I did enough research for you guys so you can kind of see it for yourself, but basically, if you type in the exact same name as this character that's introduced at the end of the first chapter, there's a lot of references to, like, Norse mythology here and parts of the soul, which ties perfectly in with the first chapter's message and theme, but also the name in general represents a guardian spirit, and there is a whole wiki page dedicated to this, to where, like, this type of creature, which is called a Phlegia or whatever, can actually either be an animal-like form, or actually become a, female spirit. And that's exactly what we got with the first chapter, is a female spirit, or a spirit guardian, watching over our main male character, Otr. Really good stuff. You can definitely tell that there is a lot of research that was poured into this series already from the writer, and I think it makes a lot of sense when you factor in what Yuki wrote previously. For instance, with Red Hood. For those that don't know what Red Hood is about, it was basically like Brothers Grimm. It was mythology, or not mythology, it was folk tales, fairy tales, dark fairy tales, like Red Riding Hood, for instance. That's why it was called Red Hood. There was a lot of references to very infamous and famous fairy tales and folk tales. And I think it's become very obvious at this point that the author of Otr and Red Hood is a massive fan of just fantasy, myths, and stuff like that, because to incorporate something like this that isn't necessarily normally seen in Norse stories showcases that they are definitely well-versed and well-read within this type of stuff and can definitely tell a very unique story. The question is how does Japan take it? Will Japan like this? I don't know. That's the big question mark out of all this, is because typically, if it does well in the West, it can survive. It depends, but it really does come down to the Japanese audience and how they view it, and I don't know necessarily if Japan is going to like this or not. I mean, it does play it safe with the whole Norse theme, obviously, because I think if there is any myth that you could definitely play with in manga for Japan, it would definitely be Norse theme. I mean, Vinland Saga is a very good example of that. It's gotten very popular, it's been popular, and I think that people will instantly be able to be like, okay, even if you don't understand Norse mythology, the whole Viking aesthetic and shields and helmets and stuff is going to instantly win people over. You factor in that the art style kind of looks reminiscent of Horikoshi's art style from, My Hero Academia, and obviously with My Hero Academia being out of the magazine for a while now, there's definitely a niche that needs to be filled with that type of artwork, so it also fills in that. It might gather a lot of readers that are, used to be My Hero Academia readers. That's a good and a bad thing, depending on how you view it. But, overall, I do think that there is a lot going for this first chapter. There is enough essence to really gather that the plot is there. There is a good story being told. For instance, the plot seems very basic and standard at the moment, but there is a lot of little details here and there, for instance, like I already showed with the Guardian Spirit, that will show that there is going to be a complicated story here. It's going to be a story of maturity, a story of, a warrior, a story of someone that wants to die a valiant death, all that different type of stuff. And I think that one of the main things, which is very typical of a battle shonen, is to have something that is very basic and simple, but it depends on how you achieve it. And that is, our main character's objective is to become a warrior. But at the end of the chapter, it's already given to him that he is a warrior. It's already stated that he has become a warrior. Even the Guardian Spirit basically says you are a warrior and all that, and selected him because he has a warm heart on the battlefield. It kind of goes along with all the standard shonen cliches, while also doing stuff a little bit differently. I feel like there's a lot of depth that could be applied to this character, because at first he might seem very naive and fit the mold of this very goody-goody two-shoes character, but there's obviously some growth here to where he might actually become a savage warrior, because obviously this is in the Viking Norse times and stuff like that, and we also have creatures that are obviously frost giants and devils or demons or whatever that are appearing, so we can definitely see maybe some darker tones to the story as well, besides obviously just very uplifting and happy. And so with all that being said about Otr of the Flame, I will say I truly hope that this series does well in Japan. I like what I've read. It's been a while since I sat down and read a new manga and actually gave some time to it. And when I mean new manga, I mean a new manga in Weekly Shonen Jump, because I'm going to keep it real with you guys, okay? I fear starting new manga in Shonen Jump because too often I have started a new series, I've talked about it on the channel, or not even on the channel, and then Shonen Jump axes it like 8 to 10 weeks later, and it makes me very sad, because it's like there's just so much potential that was just instantly snuffed out and lost in that moment, and I really hope that is not the case with this. And I feel like it's very symbolic as well if this series survives, because obviously the story is about a flame that, never goes out, and then the character at the end of the chapter was literally about to have his flame snuffed out, aka like life, and he breathed life into it, and obviously it sparked back up, and he was able to win. I hope that it's symbolic, and that that message within the manga also applies to the author, and that the author is able to have a series survive and not get axed in Weekly Shonen Jump. I am definitely going to be following this manga as it progresses. I might cover it weekly, depending on where it goes, but I will say, if you are interested in reading this, I highly recommend it. Great first chapter, great art, insane art, honestly. I understand that the first chapter might be better than most chapters going forward for at least a while, because obviously there was a lot more time to craft and cook on this chapter for the author instead of a weekly format, but even then, the art is very impressive for a first chapter. Not a lot of manga, even with their first chapters, even come close to some of the good quality artwork that this has, so I do think that there is so much potential here, just even in the art department as well. But okay, thank you so much for watching. May all of you have a fantastic day or night wherever you live. Be safe, stay healthy. Chibi out.